Hi everyone, my name is Azrika and I want to welcome you back to my channel. And if this is your first time seeing one of these videos, I'm so excited that you can join me. And today we're going to be talking about failure. So let's get right into it. So life is completely and utterly interesting, right? There are highs and lows, successes and failures. And as a believer, sometimes it seems like we've followed through on what God told us to do and it just led us to failure. And what do we do in those times? Well, first I want to say you're actually in pretty great company. The entire Bible is filled with stories of people who followed God and met their end or met failure. The children of Israel, after they left Egypt and wandered for a couple of days, ended up between the Red Sea, a mountain range, and Egyptians. But God, we followed you. Or even again when they ended up at the walls of Jericho. But God, we followed you. The three Hebrew boys stood up for God, ended up in the fiery furnace. Lazarus, Jesus' A1, ended up dead. Jesus, called into the wilderness by his Father to be tempted. There are so many stories of people who followed God and it seemed like they met nothing but failure. And what that does to me is it challenges the idea of failure. It redefines what failure actually is. A story that comes to my mind is the time that Jesus ended up on the boat with his disciples and there was a raging storm. So backtrack. Jesus, as per usual, was preaching and teaching and healing and the crowd loved him and the disciples are like, hey, we're about to be second in command. Like Jesus is about to be the king. We're his squad. We're good to go. But of course they really misunderstood Jesus's purpose and his mission here on earth. So a part of them felt this frustration, like why is Jesus not accepting the power and the accolades that everyone is trying to give him? Come on, Jesus, can you just be king already? And Jesus could sense that amongst his disciples. So he pulled them away from the crowd, told them, yo, let's go to the other side. And Jesus, being the human that he is, was extremely tired and fell asleep on the boat. Also, Jesus, just being this charismatic and loving and just warm person, when Jesus told his disciples to go to the other side, people are like, I want to go too. Shoot, I'm coming. So on this lake was a bunch of other people on their boats going to the other side, just wanting to follow Jesus. And lo and behold, a storm comes. But this isn't just a regular storm. And also, it almost comes out of nowhere. If you understand that the disciples, a lot of them were fishermen. As a fisherman, you know how to read the sky. There's a saying that fishermen and sailors often use. Red sky in the morning, sailors warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. So you can imagine that these people who have been fishermen, not only for their whole lives, but their dad and probably their granddad, they were fishermen too, absolutely knew how to read the sky. And so in the Bible, it doesn't mention that the sky gave any intimation that a storm was coming. So this epic storm comes out of nowhere and the disciples' natural inclination is to try to bail themselves out. Like they're trying to fix it, trying to get water out of the boat. They're sailors, so they know how to navigate storms and seas, but then they realize, snap, this is a little bit too much for us. And that's when they turn to Jesus, who is still sleeping in the boat. I actually always wonder how Jesus never got water in his nose. Like, I'm like, how you do that? But anyways, Jesus is sleeping in the boat and the disciples at this point are afraid for their lives and they cry out, Master, do you not care that we perish? That resounding question, the one that keeps repeating itself just through a lot of life. Do you not care? Jesus gets up, tells the waves and the winds to relax, and they instantly chill out. And then Jesus says to his disciples, why do you have such little faith? This story makes me think about being called to what looks like a failure because first of all, the disciples were not on that boat on their own volition. They were there simply because Jesus said to them, let's go to the other side. If you are in a place where it seems like everything is falling apart, but all you've done is follow God as he's called you to the other side, you have to understand that the storm is not greater than the one who calms storms. There is nothing that God calls you to that he's not capable of getting you through. The cool thing with this story is when the disciples and Jesus make it to the other side, they end up ministering to and freeing two men from their demons. And it's not even just like one demon. They call themselves Legion because there were many demons. And the whole city that the demoniacs lived in knew of their possession, and they kind of like were outcasts, people on the fringes, and Jesus came and set them free. And a result of that, that whole city was saved simply because Jesus and the disciples made it to the other side. When Jesus calls you to the other side, it may seem like you are in the midst of a storm that came out of nowhere, but Jesus can calm that storm. You being called to the other side, Jesus never said, like, him calling you wasn't like, hey, it's gonna be a smooth ride, nice sailing, we're gonna make it in record time. That's not actually what he said. He just told you, hey, let's go to the other side. So you have to trust and believe that even if this storm is raging, like, God, I'm only in medical school because you brought me here. Why do I have to repeat this year? Like, this dream that's on my heart, like, it seems like this is what you want me to do, but nothing is making sense. If God has called you, he will get you through it. 1 Thessalonians 5:24, faithful is he that calleth you, who also will do it. If God has called you, it doesn't matter how much the storm is raging, stay in the boat. If he called you to the other side, there is something on the other side greater than you can imagine. Another person that comes to my mind when I think of failure is Noah. My dog preached for 120 years, and not a single soul, other than his family, got into the boat. You would think that someone out of just sheer courtesy would have been like, all right, Noah, I see you. I see you, homie. I see you preaching. You're consistent. You're passionate. I'ma just give this a try just because I see what you are doing. But no one entered into the ark. If that isn't failure, I don't know what is. But imagine if Noah stopped preaching because he gauged what seemed like a success based on the reaction of people. Imagine if Noah changed what he believed because of how much success it seemed he was gaining. This world would be a very different place. Because in the case of Noah, when God called Noah to the other side, this was a matter of life and death. If Noah didn't build the ark, if Noah didn't comply, if Noah didn't preach, if Noah didn't get into the ark, even though everything around him seemed like this is actually bonkers, this is crazy, right? Then Noah would not have been saved. So whatever it is God is putting on your heart, don't get out of the boat. Don't get out of the ark of safety. If God is calling you, yes, a storm will rage. You may hit what seems like failure. You may find yourself at the Red Sea. You may find yourself in the tomb like Lazarus. You may find yourself having to march around the walls of Jericho, but just keep going. Do not get out of the boat, because it is safer to be in the boat than it is to be anywhere else. One of the most beautiful parts of the story is after Jesus calms the winds and the waves, not only do the disciples say, oh my gosh, who is this guy? But everyone is like, yo, who is this guy that even the wind and the waves obey him? What God is trying to do in your life. And even in midst of and through your storms, he's trying to give you a moment where you say, yo, who's this God that even the winds and the waves of my life obey him? That when I call him, he stands up and tells everything to chill out, and it does. That when I need him, he will open the doors. As a result of the storm, the disciples understood more of God's nature. And as a result of understanding more of God's nature, they were able to be more effective when the time came as ministers for Christ. So this storm is not the end of you. This thing that seems like a failure, this thing that seems like opposition, this closed door, this rejection, it's not the end of you. It's merely God positioning you so that he can do what he does best and leave you in awe, like, yo, what kind of man is this? That he worked this miracle in my life. Stay the course. Keep going. Keep preaching. Keep following God. Get your behind in that boat and never get out, because if he called you to the other side, there is something greater than you can ever imagine. What you attain on the other side will invariably be more meaningful, more exciting, more fulfilling than what you quote unquote lost in the storm. This failure, whether it's repeating a year of school, not getting into school, loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one, loss of a business, a rejection of sorts. Whatever it is for you, when Jesus stands up and tells this storm, peace be still, it will. And you will make it to the other side. And as a result, not only will you be in awe of this magnificent God, but people's lives will be changed as well. So, if you feel like you followed God and it led you straight up to failure, you're in phenomenal company. And trust me, you're gonna make it to the other side. And you're not even gonna regret the way that you got to the other side. Guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for stopping by and just talking with me today. I love sharing my perspective with you. If this is an idea that resonates with your soul, like it. If you wanna share this with someone who you know is going through a difficult time, share it. Subscribe and ring the bell so that you can be the first one to get notifications when more videos like this come up. I really, really do love you guys. You guys are in my prayers, and I just, again, want to thank you for stopping by.